In Genesis chapter 22, Abraham's faith is tested. Here is what we see in verses 1 to 3. Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham, and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. So God is testing Abraham. God doesn't tempt, but he does test. He tests faith. Note Abraham's response to God's call. Here I am. He's responsive to God's call. He's responsive to God's voice. God commands Abraham to sacrifice his son, his only son, whom he loves, as a burnt offering, an offering of devotion, an offering of surrender. This is the ultimate challenge for Abraham and for the line of promise. Abraham is being instructed to sacrifice the son he's waited for 25 years, the son of promise, through whom God will give Abraham countless descendants. Now this foreshadows God's own sacrifice of his own son, his only son, whom he loves. Just as Isaac is to be sacrificed on one of the mountains of Moriah, Jesus will also be sacrificed on one of the mountains of Moriah, the Temple Mount. Abraham rises early and obeys God without delay. As per the ensuing verses, Isaac carries his own wood, foreshadowing how Jesus will carry his own wood, the cross. Abraham and Isaac reach their destination, and then Abraham sets up the altar for the sacrifice and binds his son on the altar, foreshadowing how Jesus will be bound. And then Abraham raises his knife. Now, how could Abraham do such a thing? Well, we know that God promised Isaac to him, and he knows that God has directed him to offer up Isaac. So as per Hebrews chapter 11, verses 17 to 19, Abraham is convinced that God will raise Isaac from the dead. And figuratively speaking, Isaac will rise, foreshadowing Jesus' resurrection. As Abraham is about to slay his son, the Lord calls out in the nick of time, Do not lay your hand on the lad. Now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then God provides a ram caught in a thicket as an offering, a substitute sacrifice, foreshadowing Jesus as the ultimate substitute sacrifice. There are 2 reflections we'll highlight at this time. Reflection number 1, just as Abraham was willing to sacrifice his only son, Isaac, God was willing to sacrifice his only son, Jesus. The good news of Jesus Christ is foreshadowed here, approximately 2,000 years prior to Christ. God's plan is amazing. Then reflection number 2, are you and I willing, as God may lead, to place the people and things we hold dear on the altar, at the foot of the cross, figuratively speaking, and not with a real knife, but knowing that God is good and that his plan is good? The things we hold on to tend to get in the way of a close relationship with Christ, whereas the things we release into God's hands, trusting him, tend to open up the door for God to use those things and us in wonderful ways. Let's be people who continually thank God for his willingness to sacrifice his one and only son. And let's be people who, like Abraham, are willing to place the people and things we love the most on the altar of our heart, trusting that God is good. Thanks for listening.